for joining. We only have a couple more sessions like this. It's gone by so fast that we started at the end of December, maybe like the third week of December, and it's already going to be May. Man, and I still have hundreds of slides to go, so we'll just keep going. So today we're gonna dive into where we left off last time, but over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking with Annie and kind of looking at how we could really end in a good way on a high note, and we decided that I'll finish this weekend, next week, and then for the month of May will be a 4-week training on tapping, EFT, because that's really how I wanted to end it. It was to really get you in depth in that particular tool. And I thought, well, yeah, I would love to do that. And then I thought, why don't I have the person who trained me on it, like next level? So I called my friend who trained me, and she was willing to do it. Her name's Jondi, and she has been a partner of mine in taking this tool to reses. She's been to South Dakota. She's helped me with in Canada, several reses in Canada, New York, Oklahoma, Arizona. And the tool itself has honestly been, I can say it now since she's come in a couple weeks, but it is my favorite tool. It is my go-to tool, because it deflates, it decompresses stress, PTSD, anxiety, depression, even pain so quickly and so efficiently that when I first started doing it, I just thought, well, this is ridiculous. Just something else. I was looking for whatever else must be happening while I'm using this tool, because this can't be all that we're doing. But that tool was just that effective. And I've shared with you guys how it disrupts the electrical charge going to the stress centers of the brain while using logic, even though I'm having this, and then we tap down on these points in the body, where the charge is, where you get more bang for your buck as far as decompressing that charge. And you should see people just change right in front of you. It's very, very impressive tool. And I had been a skeptic about it when I heard about it 15 years ago. And I'd been a skeptic for 5 years because I thought, no, it was a bridge too far for me. And it's okay to be skeptical when it comes to looking at new research and new methods. It's good to be skeptical. It's not good to be closed-minded, but it's good to be skeptical, to say, well, I want to see the research. I want to see what it feels like when I touch it and play with it and use it and things like this. And that's everything that we've talked about over the past 5 months has been stuff that I probably was originally, I need to learn more about this, and to the point where now I can't imagine doing my work without the stuff we talked about. And what's cool is, as John D and I were talking, she asked me what I've been teaching you guys about, and I said, well, we've done a lot of foundational things which we've used Bessel van der Kolk's work. We used the neurologist out of UCLA, Siegel's work. We've used Gabor Mate's work, Peter Levine's work, Stephen Porges' work, the somatic work. We've combined all these things because all of that is necessary to help understand this, because all of this is somatic information. And then we park on this tool that quickly collapses this information, the sense of overwhelm. So as Andy and I were talking about it, we are in the process, I'm not even sure I can say this, Andy, but I'll say it and you tell me I'm wrong, of getting some CEUs. That'll be particularly important for providers, from CEUs from Standing Rock, if you can attend all 4 sessions. So we're going to do, I'll be on the calls, the Zooms, but Johnny will take the lead and I'll be supporting her over that month. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Tell your friends, let's get as many people on here as we can. And I'll share with you that there's a community in Canada called Chiging. It's a Anishinaabe community. It's spelled Mchigeeng, but it's pronounced Chiging. And we went up there. I went up there for a year straight. And the last like 3 months of that was, let's get people certified in like the first level of EFT, of tapping. So if the whole goal was, if people are getting activated at home, at their tables, if they're with their families and somebody's getting activated, that charge lights up the stress centers, they have a tool right there. It's portable, it's efficient, it's everywhere they go. So that's how that whole year ended, was giving them actually spending days and days and days and days practicing and certifying people to do this work. So there you go. I'm excited to move forward with this. So there's that. So we're going to keep moving through. I'm going to knock out the trauma first aid, and then next week we'll end on different types of parenting styles that affect safety and what they look like in children, the attachment in children. That's going to be, we'll end there. Then the following week we'll just dive right into tapping with John D. Sweet. Okay, so if you remember, we ended last time, we talked about children and what trauma looks like them, particularly in school. We did adolescents, children, then we did school age, and then we ended with adolescents a couple weeks ago. And we talked a lot about suicidality, which I think was a pretty important conversation. So I'm going to finish up with adolescents today, and then we'll go into trauma first aid stuff. So the first 3 warning signs for suicidality, we didn't talk about it. We'll dive in there. But and they're pretty obvious: threatening to kill themselves. And you guys know this as providers, if they don't have to tell you anything. If they say, I want to hurt myself, then we take that seriously. We dive into that because they don't have to tell you. And you've probably had experienced this just like I've experienced, that if somebody is going to, if there's their full intention, they will. There's really limited, they can go by themselves, and unfortunately that's how it is. If they really want to, they don't have to tell one person about it to help save them. So if they are threatening it, if they are saying it, they're saying to you, I'm not that person yet. There's a little bit of hope in me. There's something in me that wants to live, so I got to tell somebody about it. So they're threatening to kill themselves. They're threatening suicide, or maybe they're looking for ways. And that's part of our lethality questions. Is I've heard, you guys have heard people say, it'd be just better off if I weren't here, which is, we still want to be present and have that conversation because that's where they are. We don't want that to escalate. But that's different than somebody saying, if I leave here, I'm going home and I know where the guns are. So the lethality is very critical. Or maybe they start talking or writing about dying or suicide in schools. And that's I've had schools and counselors call me if there's drawings of representations of people hanging themselves, or if their art changes significantly to darker, same with if their writing changes. That's the time we pull people aside, because that's kind of they're saying, I got something going on here. You know what? I don't really know how to express this. And I'm not raised in an environment where expression is valued in any way. So here's my art. What do you think about this? Connect them in that way. They're showing us. Maybe they're starting to have hopelessness. They're talking about revenge or anger. They're acting more reckless. They're increased reckless activities. Impulsivity, without putting forethought into what could happen. A lot of times there's hopelessness. They feel trapped. There's no way out. And I might have shared this with you guys, but I'm working on a national suicide initiative for youth. And we're just doing 2 or 3 pilot programs right now. But I've been talking with a lot of youth, and often they'll say, it's always been like this and it's always going to be like this. And the first one is probably true. It's always been this way. So in their life, they're just basing future information based on the information they've had previously. So if I've always felt sense of overwhelm, I've always been angry, stressed, depressed, disconnected, detached from family. There's no hope in this. And that's how it's been. And this is where they are. And they're having this conversation. They're basing future performance on past performance. So we get a chance to intervene. And that's where all these tools we're talking about, because what they're saying is, I have felt like this forever, and I don't know any other way to feel. And I hate this. So I'm going to end this because I don't like how this feels. That's where all this somatic and even the tapping is going to come in, because it gives them the chance to come up for air for a second. And that is a big deal. That is a big moment. So when they're saying it's always been this way and it's always going to be this way, that is they're telling their absolute truth, because they're basing anything in the future from what it's already been for the past 14, 15, 16, 17 years. So then they start increasing alcohol use, increasing drug abuse. There's withdrawal from family or friends, really and you guys know this is the providers, the indicators of depression. They're not as interested in things they were interested in previously. They withdraw, they carry themselves different, their affect is different. There's significant mood changes. And when I work with kids, this seems like an arbitrary question, but I always want to know, what are things like 6 months from now, or even a month from now? Because trauma doesn't know a next. Trauma knows this moment, surviving this moment. And you're talking about college? I'm talking about surviving this moment. You're talking about what do I want to be when I grow up? That's not even a thing for me. So I want to find out, is there, and you do this with suicidal ideation, is there things in your life that give you hope? Do you have things in your life to look forward to? Is there a sense, and I've had this conversation particularly on reses, is there a sense of spirituality that gives you hope? And man, I was talking with a group of kids, and I asked them, well, how do you understand spirituality then? And I promise they said this: it is ghosts, it is demons, and it is something to avoid, and it is something to be afraid of. Which, oh my goodness. When you think about who we are as a people, and having them understand spirituality as fear, something to be avoided. And I always encourage, as much as you can, getting elders and medicine folks involved in the counseling, particularly if you want to dive into the spiritual aspects of it. That can go a long way in healing. Factors that increase risk of suicidal ideation. They've recently been incarcerated at I'm blanking on the name of the jail between Kiow and Rosebud. They're recently incarcerated. They have a family history of suicide. They have a history of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional abuse. 80% of people of our young people that were sexually abused could be diagnosed with PTSD. So they have, in which is this whole sequela of symptoms that looks like suicidality. They may have other health problems, diagnosed with other health problems. Diabetes is pretty common. Age, gender. Males are much more likely to are much more likely to follow through with their suicidal ideation. Females are much more likely to attempt. Males are much more likely to finish their suicide. We want to check current ideation. Do they have a plan? Do they have intent? The more specific, the more lethal it is. If they've had previous suicide attempts, that's actually an indicator for ongoing suicidal attempts. We really want to find out if there's hope. That's like I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, that book, Unbroken, The guy knew that a person wasn't going to make it till the morning in the concentration camp because you could see that they lost hope. And I hate that for our Native people. I hate that for our Native young people. They're showing they don't have hope. That's heartbreaking. So factors that may decrease. Now that we've kind of identified, let's look at things that may decrease the risk of suicide. They're called protective factors. You guys are familiar with that. Positive social support, which is a huge thing, even just physiologically. Remember how the vagus nerve responds to positive social interactions? It helps with vagal tone, which helps with my heart rate variability, which helps with this tightness in my stomach that I'm calling my trauma or my addiction. It helps with all of these things, being well connected to well people. Spirituality, healthy, good spirituality, well spirituality was actually one of the protective factors. A sense of responsibility to a family. And I want to frame this in a way that we can hear it well, that I can even hear it well. Because I work with folks, and that's when I ask them, do you feel suicidal? And they'll say, yeah, I've thought about it and I think about it. And then I have to ask, well, would you ever do that? And they'll say, I just talked to someone just the other day, and he said that, no, I would never do that because of what it would do to my wife and my daughter. So the sense of responsibility isn't a bad thing. It can be a very healthy thing for them. Do they have positive coping skills? Which that's the stuff we've been talking about. Not just coping, healing. Do they have a sense of sovereignty, autonomy? Do they have agency in their own lives that they believe, yeah, I can handle what I come up against? And if they have more of those tools, and some of those things may be the social interaction, it may be the family, it may be the spirituality, it may be the school, it may be you, that I have things that are part of my quiver that I can bust out when life seems like it's getting a little heavy. I have good problem solving skills. I have a therapeutic relationship with somebody that's holding me accountable for my thoughts and my feelings. So the questions we ask as providers, are you feeling hopeless? What's hopelessness feel like? Do you feel hopeless about this feeling? Do you have it about the present? Do you have it about the future? Have you thought about taking your life? When do you have these thoughts? Do you have a plan? What does your plan look like? And it's good to dive into these questions, because if they said yes, remember, you're not being a Budinsky. If they said yes, maybe you're the only person they've ever said yes to, and they're saying, you are my last hope. I don't have to tell anybody any of this stuff, and I'm telling you because I think you have the capacity to help me. So dive in. Also, kind of know where your fence line ends, as I've shared with you before. If there's many of us who are required reporters, but sometimes we just feel like, I don't know what to do next. You aren't alone either. You have a team of people who you work with. There's the supports on the res. There's programs that you just give them a call. Say, you know what, this is so important to me. This is such an important conversation to me. Is it okay if I make sure we have it right? And I always want to bring somebody that I really trust in, and we can all talk about this together because you're valuable to me. So we approach it with open hearts and without our egos attached to it, and we just say, let's knock this out of the park. Let's do this together. Let's keep going. Okay, so the teen trauma checklist. Abrupt changes, becoming withdrawal, grades change in behavior, changes in mood. They become more dependent on alcohol or drugs, disinterest in hobby, things that you see pretty regularly. So we want to have some practical tools. And so this part here is going to tee up our EFT in a couple of weeks. We want to have practical tools that minimize traumatic event symptoms. We want to have some practical tools that affect what the person is looking like in front of us. We want to kind of deflate the autonomic nervous system. So, and remember, the being present, prosody, giving hope, and their body wants to get rid of the trauma. We have to be good stewards of the process. Always have that be a record in the back of your head. A record, what's up, old school? A MP3 file in the back of your head that their body's trying to get rid of the trauma. We just need to be good stewards of the process. And that's really way, way, way more about who you are being, more than what you're saying, who you are being. Because if you're saying a lot, you're talking to their prefrontal. And if they're in go mode, this part of the brain is on fire. So who are you being? Help them releasing this stuff. So step number one, I'm going to just walk through, I think there are 8 steps here. Let me double check this. Be calm. You be cool. That's what after ever since Gracie was a little, like when things get stressful, I've taught her internal tools, and I said, here's the ABCs of right now, Grace. Always be cool. Always be cool. That's the ABCs. Because if you submit to this somatic overwhelm, the brain's going to say, I know what this is. We're running. We must be scared. But if I wait, it's a very sovereign moment. So I teach her the ABCs. Always be cool. Get to know the information, and then then you can respond to it rather than react to it. ABCs. ABCs. Be calm. The person who's been traumatized is reading your face. They're taking cues from you about how they should be in this moment. If it was a car accident, if you pull up to an abuse situation, if there was a fight, if there was an explosion, things like this. So it's natural to feel amped up, and it's natural for you to feel amped up when you pull up on this. But then I get in daddy bear mode. And, let me just do this and everything get away. But we want to help them heal. We don't want this stored in them. So we want to make sure that we're okay, because they're going to read how to be. And if we're using our ABCs, always being cool. Just take 5 seconds to check yourself. It'll pay off in the long run. Because if you go in amped up, you're just going to amp up them some more. So be cool yourself. We don't want to elevate the feelings of stress and anxiety. So over time, over practice, we learn how to create equilibrium in our body. So much to the point where we can loan some of it out. Remember, their vagus nerve is reading you. So if you've practiced over the last several months that we've been talking about all this stuff, all these different tools, if you've practiced equilibrium, you have extra to loan out. So you're coming up on a situation, you're talking to your friend who gets activated, they can actually read that from you and borrow some of your safety. Man, that's an awesome thing. I like when I say that. I should say that again. I should say that more often. Maybe I'll say that at dinner later, like when I'm ordering my food. You know, some equilibrium, I got extra. So once your body understands the pendulation process, you develop a hardy nervous system, you're able to share that. That's why it's so important for us to take care of ourselves first. I did a whole year with a school system. And after the entire year, we met weekly for the entire year. One of the teachers raised their hand and said, if we have to do one thing you've talked about for the past year, what would it be? And I had to think about it because we talk about it a lot. It was take care of yourself first. Watch who you're being in this moment. Start out ahead of time. You don't go into a fire drill in the middle of you don't have a fire drill in the middle of a fire. You have a fire drill because there might be a fire coming. So we work on ourselves. So when the fire comes, we're already there. We're ready. We can handle this. So the simple step of letting the person know that this uncomfortable sensation is temporary. It'll pass. This isn't the final state. This isn't it. I can just use the example from today on telepsych. A guy came in and got some awful news about work. He's going to lose his job, and he came in fully on go mode. And plus, he had a previous diagnosis of bipolar, which, remember, bipolar is just a defense mechanism in the body. So it's the somatic work what got him so far in addressing what bipolar feels like in him, to the point he said, and he calls it cycling. He said, I didn't cycle. He said, I normally would have cycled when I got this information. He said, because I would have tried to think my way through it. He said, I would have tried to think, well, why is this happening? And what frame can I put this in? And he didn't have a frame for, I lost my job, I don't know how to pay my bills. He didn't have a frame for it. And so he's trying to stuff it into one, which normally would have caused him to cycle, to have a bipolar event. But he said, I just stopped and I said, I'm not even worried about the frame. I'm more concerned about the information my body's giving me. And he slowed the game down. It was a beautiful thing. I was so proud of him. Man, good for him. Even though he lost his job, he claimed sovereignty. I'm pounding my desk on that one. Good for him. So what part of what we did in our conversation was recognize that was a temporary state. It feels like that now, but that's not the permanent state. The permanent state you're showing yourself has been a calm alertness. This is a red flag right now. It feels like this, but this is temporary. And I use prosody with my voice. We brought him back nice using somatic tools. Let's look at the information your body's giving you. And he sat there and realized it was temporary. Then we could have a conversation. And then he had a bunch of different frames. He said, well, you know what? Maybe this is a learning thing for me. And he just chose his frames. But if we were trying to shove it in right away using cognitive tools, it wouldn't have worked. Okay, so we want to notice, we want to get the information that we are given. And the information that he was showing me, his cheeks were red, his face was very tight, he's moving like this. He uses his hands a lot. So he's doing this with his hands, he's very agitated. He's showing me his information. He's telling me, I've got all this going on. Please do not use a logic language tool for me right now because I'm going to explode. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'll save that tool for later. And let's get you back to where you know this is a temporary state. Notice some changes in skin color, the redness, muscle tone, facial tone, facial expressions, what's going on with the eyes and the mouth. Are the eyes darting back and forth? And usually that's an involuntary process. He didn't even know his eyes were doing that. Well, you know what? He's doing this. He even knows her eyes were doing that. Were they vacant? Were his pupils dilated? Just, they're giving you the information. Here's the facts. That's the facts. Anything that I would have said cognitively would have been a hypothetical. I would have said, well, could it be, what do you think about, we were just gone fishing. Could it be this? Nope, not on that line. Could it be this? Nope, not on that line. I could have dealt with hypothetical, but he's showing me the facts. And the facts are, I'm in overwhelm and I need help getting out of overwhelm. So attending to the overwhelm. Let them know let them know that that's a natural process. It's not a permanent one, but it's a natural one. There's a lot went on. There's good reason to be agitated. Maybe if it's a person who's younger, if it's this adolescent we've been talking about, let them know that you're in charge, that you are calm, caring, confident, competent, chameleon-like. At their pace, calm, caring, confident, competent, chameleon-like. That sounds hard. Let them know that you're fully present with them, because remember, trauma is a incident of asynchrony, of lack of flow. And so we are stepping in to create relationship, to let them borrow my safety and create some synchrony. Woo. They need to feel your protection, that you got their back. So once the person understands this, maybe they can relax a little bit and give up control for the natural sensation. The person may start shaking, they may start crying, which are all good. I'm going to say that again. It's good. We've been raised to say, oh, stop crying. Shh, shh, get all resi on them. Shh, no, stop crying. But remember that I've shared this with you before. Tears in different situations have different physiological process, different alkalinity. Tears of joy are different than tears of fear or excitement. So the process of crying is good. And then the process of shaking, you remember the zebra? The process of shaking is good as well. So being present with them and not just leaving them alone to cry and shake, that'd be kind of cruel. But being present with them and let them know, yeah, that's pretty natural. Go ahead and shake that scary stuff out. Sometimes I'll even put a hand on the back. I don't rub, massage like that. I just put a hand in the back and I just say, I'm right here. Don't say relax. Don't say stop crying. Don't say calm down. Just be with them. Remember, they're borrowing your safety right now. If they can borrow your safety, they can heal. So and you know this from when you've been vulnerable or stressed, you benefit most from someone who's calm, grounded, centered. Not even those words grounded and centered are just so fluffy sounding and people use them so much, but it's actually literally being right here with you right now. Because the more grounded I am, I have to be, the more grounded and centered and present I am, the bigger their shock is, the more I have to be this. Because it'd be easier for them to elevate me to them, but I want to be, the stronger I am in this, the more we've practiced this over and over and over again in our daily lives, the more we have the capacity for them to borrow that. And come on now. So when the cycle's complete, the person re-engages again. And remember, as I've shared with you before, a person who's in go mode, hulking out, the lateral prefrontal cortex is bringing the past into the present. Their hippocampus is all screwed up. Their body feels like it's on fire. They don't feel like they're inside themselves. They're just all over the place. But when you're doing this stuff and they reorient, they create synchrony again. You can see it. So when they engage back into this present time, when they engage into what is going on right now, they'll say, what happened, or what's going on, or they'll look at you in the eye and they'll be curious about the situation. That means they're back. So helping natural discharge is the most efficient trauma prevention. Helping the natural discharge. The body's trying to give it anyway. We need to be good stewards of the process. It dissolves the flight response before it has a chance to settle in. So remember, I'm just going to go through 8 things real quick. So that was kind of, here's the natural flow. But check your own responses. Make sure you're okay. How concerned are you in this moment? Take literally 5 seconds. Because if you've practiced this a lot before before the fire, if you've done the fire drill many times, when the fire comes, your body has already fired and wired. It knows, oh, when you do this, I do this. And I've shared with you guys before that how humongous of a rock star I am. Golly, it's embarrassing sometimes. And so we get to play concerts in front of people. Sometimes I play all by myself. Sometimes I have a band. It just depends on the situation. And it's honestly more stressful for me to play with a band because I want to make sure everybody knows their parts and I have all their parts in my mind. So I'm kind of giving them subtle cues the whole show. But before we even go out, I'll stand back and go, I slow the game down. You have to ground yourself first. And I've had the guys say to me, it's so cool when you go out because you're so calm and that helps me play better. Really, they're just borrowing my safety. Assess the situation. So make sure you're okay. Assess the situation. Is it safe yet? Is there a fire? Are they close to the fire? Is the person actually safe, physically safe? And then if they are safe, kind of look at the things that we talked about: skin color, attentiveness. Are their eyes darting all over the place? Are they present? Are they beside themselves, and keep them with you, and just say, let's do nothing for a second together. Let's just hang for a second. So as you can see them start to pendulate, Levine's work, you can see them start to pendulate the sympathetic, parasympathetic, see them coming back a little bit. That's the time to start guiding them through, where do you feel this the most? How big is it right now that you feel it? And then let's breathe that down. Just do what I do. If they mention a distinct sensation, my stomach, tell me about your stomach. Where is it? Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a size? Have them get to know that sensation base of it. How does it? And here's a big trauma work question. Here's a question I always ask with folks that are coming back like this. I ask, what happens next? That oils the autonomic system up. What happens next? Because remember, trauma doesn't know a next. Trauma knows right now. Trauma doesn't know that this has only been lasting for 10 seconds. It thinks it's been this way for years and it's going to be this way forever. It doesn't know it's been 10 seconds. So it gets stuck here, and you say, what happens next? It's almost like you're oiling up the autonomic system, saying, this isn't the final state. There's something else that's going to happen. It's going to be good. So what happens next in your body? And between these questions, shh, chameleon-like, at the pace of them, not my pace, because I got this agenda. I got to get home. There's a basketball game on, so I got this agenda. I got to be all up on their agenda, so I got to go chameleon-like. I got to go slow. So every time I ask a question, where is it? And I just wait. A couple minutes even sometimes, because I want them to find out where it is and what's it doing. Become fascinated with it. Don't become fearful of it. Become fascinated, because it's going to change in good ways for you. And we just wait. How does it change? What happens next? When you say what happens next, do nothing. And maybe when you ask that question, it's okay to put their hand in their back, because what might happen is they might shake and they might get scared. So you put your hand in their back and just breathe with them. And if they start shaking, say the words, go ahead and shake. Or shake that scary stuff out. I'm right here. You're my deal. Prosody as well. Like, I know what to expect. I've done the work. I know this could happen. So if this starts happening, yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and shake that scary stuff out. I'm right here. Let them borrow your safety. Be sure to follow their pace, and just carefully observe, because you'll see when they're ready to talk. And it's, you know what, this is hard for adults, because we want to get them through it. And it's a natural instinct. We want to be daddy bear or mama bear. We want to get them through the process. I want you to feel better. It's very natural, and it's cool that you want them to feel better. But if I take charge of it, I'm limiting the capacity that their body has in healing of it. So I got to wait. So I'm looking at, what are their eyes doing? How is their body changing? Is their tenseness changing? Are they shaking? Are they crying? I'm becoming a passive observer and all these things. And then I'll just throw the question out. Where is it now? So too many questions in a row becomes an inquisition, and it can disrupt the natural course. So the fewer words we can say, the better, because language is up here in logic and my Brokaw's and my Wernicke. So I don't want to make them use this much of your brain. I want them to use this part of the brain, but I just want to direct them toward the sensation base. So don't talk too much. Okay. Be alert that you see the cycles changing. Watch how their face muscles change, their back, their shoulders change. If they take a deep breath, that's pretty common. That's a spontaneous, relaxing breath. And usually after they do that, they'll come back. It's almost like they snap out of it. And then wait, because another cycle might come. There's no rush. We're not in any rush here. So we're just going to wait and see if another cycle might engage. Well, let's just hang for a second. validate the response, say you did great. Some of that had to be hard and or scary. And now that if you still feel shaky, that's okay too. Let's just hang here together. And that shaking is pretty normal. And here's a big thing that I think is important to say: trust the body's ability to heal, our innate ability to heal. But we heal when we're safe, when there is safety. So you being that safe person that cranks up their ability to heal. And then I go at their pace that cranks it even more. We help them pay attention to their sensation base. They're borrowing our safety. We know what we're doing because we've had fire drills all along, and now this has come along. Shoot, I know what I'm doing. I'm totally prepared for this. When they reorient, that's a sign of completion. Don't try to shift their position. Don't distract their attention, and don't hold too tightly. That's a couple of the mistakes that I made previously was, like when I was doing this work with my kids, I would want to daddy bear them, but they can't shake if I'm here. They're not releasing that charge because I'm holding them so tightly. So I'm not holding too tightly. I wanted them as daddy bear to feel better. I wanted them to feel better right now, but we have to know that this is them feeling better. It's feeling better more in this moment, and then years from now, 6 months from now, they're better because they got rid of the charge. Encourage them to rest after this. They may be tired anyway. I know people have thought, oh, I'm really tired now, but it was a good tired, like working out really hard kind of tired. And the final step is, after they're done, right in the middle of it, we're not labeling emotions. I'm so scared. We're not labeling things. It's just information. It's just information. So we're not saying this is fear or anxiety. We're not labeling any of that stuff. But so maybe later on, you can have an opportunity to talk about the emotional. What was that like? I was scared. Yeah. What was the scariest part of that? So you're helping them almost normalizing. That's a big deal, and it's okay to be scared during that. Scared is a normal response, but do you feel scared now? Is it still in your body? We don't want to be re-traumatizing. Really, something like that. I want to know if that memory has been fired and wired with a sensation base. I want to know that. So I'll ask things like, do you feel like it? Do you feel it anywhere in you now, just thinking about it, or as it pops up as a picture in your brain? Do you feel that anywhere? Because I'm curious how it's being held in them, and do we need to use other tools like tapping to help decompress anything that's remaining? You can actually use tapping in this one, but I'm gonna wait a couple of weeks before we're gonna dive into that. Let me see what else I have here. So if you've noticed, I mean, I've talked a lot because I'm sitting in a room by myself, and I don't talk. Nobody else is going to talk. So in the process, if I were doing this work with somebody, I would use very few words. Although few words are used in a process of deactivating the trauma, the ones you choose are important. Where is it? What is it doing? What does it do next? Does it have a color? Does it have a shape? Does it change? And I'm saying those questions over a 10-minute period. I'm not saying them back to back to back to back, because then I'm going to start making them think. I'm going to start making them think, well, what is it? And they're getting out of where the trauma actually lives. So the more I can just engage, be present, my prosody, pace, tone, even understanding my own sensation response, almost creating synchrony in that moment. I can tell you that in the years that I've been doing this work, trauma work, these tools that I've shared with you and tapping have been transformative, not just for myself and the work that I get to do, and the feeling of effectiveness in my work, but having folks leave feeling sovereign, which is really my bottom line, is I want them to leave feeling sovereign. They don't need me anymore. And particularly once you start the tapping tools, you're going to realize, well, they could do this anywhere and wherever they're activated. If we haven't collapsed everything during our time together, maybe they get activated someplace else, but they had this tool right there with them and they are empowered wherever they go. I have all sorts of stories about that stuff, but I'll wait till a couple weeks. Does anybody have questions or comments or thoughts?